Hello, everyone. I'm here today with Coffey CEO Dave Coffey and Coffey Director of Field Services Marc Hungerford. We are looking forward today to talking with you about subsurface utility engineering and just how important it is to uncover what is underneath the ground of your project site. We'll start by going over a few topics about subsurface utility engineering. We'll talk more about subsurface utility locating and how the two are related. And both Marc and Dave will be talking about different aspects, and we'll definitely be going over a project as well. And we're open to your questions at all times during the live stream, so do feel free to type in your questions in the chat box, and we will get to them either during the live stream or at the end of the live stream as conversation allows. So please do stay tuned to the very end, and we'll be so excited to chat with you live. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Dave, our CEO, professional engineer and surveyor, and he will talk to us a little bit about what subsurface utility engineering is. Dave, can you fill us in?
Sure, thanks, Marissa. So in order to do a good engineering project, especially an engineering project that relies upon an understanding of what lies below the surface of the earth, especially if we are designing a building foundation, if we are designing a location for some kind of underground utility like water or sewer, storm drainage, even if we're going to install anything under the ground, it is incredibly important for us to understand what is there. And subsurface utility engineering is kind of a branch of civil engineering and surveying that helps identify and limit the liability and limit the risk for a project by doing as good a job as you can in identifying physical features in the subsurface, under the ground. Marc Hungerford with me today has been working on subsurface utility engineering projects before we even started calling them subsurface utility engineering projects. Marc's a surveyor. Before the moniker of subsurface utility engineering, or SUE engineering, became prevalent, we would work with our surveyors, particularly would get direction from our engineering staff to go and look for physical evidence on a piece of property for subsurface utilities or other things on the surface that would indicate something underground, whether it's a piece of concrete sticking up out of the ground or markings of that there may be some kind of a pipeline or a utility going through the property, and we would locate those things and bring that information back to our engineers to make an educated guess as to kind of where this stuff was. Well, particularly in Colorado, but across the country, the liability for just making assumptions about what's in the ground has cost projects millions and millions of dollars. Knowledge of what you're dealing with is really important, and with some of the technology that we have now and the regulatory information, the codification of what we need to do and the levels of engineering, of SUE engineering that need to be specified, it now becomes more of an engineering challenge rather than a mapping challenge. So that's kind of a broad introduction to SUE engineering. Marc, do you have anything else to share about that?
No, you covered subsurface utility engineering, a broad definition of it, fairly well. The need and the need to know what lies beneath is great. It's becoming even a greater thing just because of the amount of infrastructure that's in the ground today.
Yeah, particularly comparatively 19 50s to 2021, the amount, especially in urban areas, the amount of underground things underground is incredible and unmapped by and large. So.
And can I ask, what projects are typical to have the need for subsurface utility engineering or just the locating of the utilities underground, as opposed to, are there projects that wouldn't need it? I'm just hearing these descriptions. I'm thinking to myself, gosh, what project couldn't benefit from this?
Well, that's an interesting question. There's definitely levels of SUE engineering we can go into. Some
quality levels.
Well, definitely quality levels, but if you are working in an urban setting and you know that there's been a considerable amount of development in that area, there's higher likelihood that you are going to have challenges with underground utilities or underground structures than you would say a brand new oil and gas rig site out in the middle of the red desert of Wyoming. Okay, that's why we've developed, or the industry has developed, different levels of quality or different levels of scrutiny that may be specified for a specific project. Some may have a higher level of liability than others. For instance, if we're going to go in downtown Denver and build a new high-rise building, we need to know with a high level of certainty what we're going to get into, what the contractor is going to get into the moment that he sticks a shovel in the ground, right? But if we're out in the middle of western Colorado or central Wyoming, and we're trying to help a utility or help a cell phone carrier install a cell phone tower on a piece of ground that's 3 foot by 3 foot, it's a lot less. There's a lot less risk. Would you say? Would you agree?
Absolutely.
So the industry has developed an ASTM. I think it's ASTM, right, Mark?
ASCE 38.
Anyway, it's an industry guideline that there you go, that indicates what level of scrutiny needs to be served for the project. So Mark, why don't you talk us through what these levels mean?
Well, the quality levels all pertain to something that I would do. I don't particularly do the engineering side of it. I provide all the data from the field. So the utility locating itself, it has 3 separate levels from D to A, which A being the most intense, which is exposure to utility, and to get to level A, you've gone through D, C, and E. Where quality level D, it all pertains to records research. Basically, you're contacting utility owners, municipalities, to see if they have infrastructure in the area, gas lines, water lines, underground power, fiber, anything of that sort. That way you are starting to get an idea of the level that you're going to have, the depth you're going to have to go into to in your investigation to find everything in the area. And so you start with D to get your records and research, move on to C, which after you've obtained all your records that you can obtain, because there are, believe it or not, some entities do not have records. They have a knowledge of it, but they don't just specifically have a physical record of, yes, we know there's a line here. They know that they've serviced it in certain areas, but they're not 100% sure. So we go from level D to level C, which after you've obtained all those records, and you've identified utility owners that may have, infrastructure in the area, you're looking for surface evidence, visible markers, anything from visible markers to, there might be a trench that has settled over the years that you can tell there's something there. That's you're physically out in the field looking for that surface evidence. And once you've gone through that, you're going to move on to level B, which we would incorporate our equipment into this, where we would bring in ground penetrating radar, or we would bring in our utility locating equipment to either hook on to utilities that we know are in the area, to give a precision horizontal location with our equipment. And from there, we would typically move to level A. We know what's in the area. We know where they're at, physically in the earth. And then we would expose them. And this is done, there's a couple different ways. Most of it's done by hydrovac excavation. It's more or less non-destructive. Very seldom do you, if the operators, know what they're doing, do they cause damage to anything? And this gives us exposure, and what that does is it gives us accurate horizontal location and vertical location in the earth. So as for Dave as an engineer, we would pass the data on to him or one of our engineers in the office here that could then move forward with their design, knowing with 100% confidence that they know that, this gas line is in the property at this area, and it's at, it's 22 inches deep. And, it crosses at, a 90-degree angle from our property line and runs straight through the middle of our property. So, with developments and things like that, they would be either able to work around it or know that they would have to, abandon and move it or whatnot. But it gives them accurate information, so they can, create their best design that they can, and two, avoid conflict with any utilities, or at the outside, avoid any damage to anything, or at the worst, death to someone because we don't know something's there.
Wow. Okay, so help break this down for me. So Marc, you would do perhaps the quality levels of D, C, B, and A, potentially all the way through. You have the capabilities of going all the way through to quality level A, of subsurface utility locating. And then what happens is, if I'm understanding correctly, you have this data and then you pass that on to the engineers at Coffey, like Dave or Stuart. And then they would take that information and run from there.
Correct. If we're doing a SUE report, all of the physical evidence that I have found in the field through either my research from quality level D, contacting utility owners, to visible evidence on the ground, to quality level B locates with electromagnetic or ground penetrating radar, as far up to quality level A, most of the time, there's in certain situations they don't require level A, but for the most part they do. What we will have done then is we'll have gathered all of this information, and then as this on the survey side, I will collect the survey information. We'll provide sub-centimeter accuracy survey data, XYZ data, to the engineer to produce a utility report, which connects all the dots, more or less, if you will, that I have gathered in the field. And we designate, the engineer will designate on that plan, this was exposed. This is a level A, quality level A exposure. We know this line is here, 100%, this is level A. Well, and the line that runs parallel to it was not exposed. This was done through electromagnetic conduction, hooking to a tracer wire, and this is level B. and so all that filed into their report, and then what they're doing is they're showing everything we have done per quality level, where it is in the world, and it's passed on to either the the municipality that has requested it, or a developer in the area that's requested it. So they have an exact idea of what is in the area that they're either going to bore through for a new fiber line, or place a building, or whatnot.
Okay. And then we actually do have a question here from Joe Henderson. What kind of horizontal and vertical accuracy does the geophysical sensing device provide?
Hello, Joe. Good to hear from you. Mark, tackle this one.
Thanks for the question. Thanks for the question, Joe. So, typically in my side notes with any of the proposals I would submit, with any of my electromagnetic conducting, I would tell you plus or minus a foot. With my GPR, the ground penetrating radar, dependent on soil type, utility size, there's a lot of factors that go into it, but dependent on utility type, size, soil, I would tell you we can provide you, accuracy levels of in the 4 to 6 inch range. If you need something more than that, level A is non-destructive exposure is the only way to go. But as for GPR, the ground penetrating radar, in the perfect conditions, 4 to 6 inches. With the electromagnetic, like my Leica DD130, if you want a rough idea, I can tell you, oh yeah, it's 18 inches deep. And I understand, 18 inches, if I tell you plus or minus a foot, well, that's a broad spectrum, but, that's, that it just
gives you an envelope for where
it gives you an idea.
Likely to be.
Well, thanks. That sounds pretty precise to me. So the range is around 4 inches on the shorter side and a foot on the longer side, you think?
Dependent upon the equipment, the type of equipment used. But with the ground penetrating radar, like I said, soil conditions are correct. Utility size is correct. With the ground penetrating radar, our rule of thumb is an inch per foot. So the utility size has to grow an inch for every foot of depth. So, a 4-inch utility at 4 feet, with the exception of heavy water or heavy clay in the soil, we should be able to identify to roughly a 6-inch vertical accuracy. Horizontal, I saw, Joe, you asked horizontally as well. The GPR, I'm within 6 inches. I'm gonna get you on it. If you're gonna do hydrovac, you're gonna hit it. If I'm gonna tell you it's there, it's there.
Wow.
With the electromagnetic, like the Leica DD130, we're dependent upon the return signal, or if there's any conflicting bleed off onto utilities that are near or adjacent to, you're probably looking at plus or minus a foot horizontally. So that's why if you look through the 811 specs, I believe they tell you 12 inches either side of their locate.
Awesome. Thanks for that information, Mark. So that really explains a lot about subsurface utility locating, I feel like, is what we really got from you. And then once it moves into the engineering side of things, or just, SUE in general, we are aware of of some of the benefits being, of course, liabilities, of cost, right? So things are underground where they are, so you're not going to hit something potentially during a project. I have a 2-part question now. Are there any other benefits that can be had from using subsurface utility engineering? And my second question is, are there actual requirements for certain projects? Would there be any, regulations required for certain projects that a certain quality level of engineering needs to be met?
Dave, do you want to take this one?
Well, it kind of depends on the end user.
So there aren't any requirements per se. It's just what the project, what the client wants to have going into the project.
Correct. There may be some. Maybe you could educate us, Mark, a little bit. There may be some requirements related to some of the municipalities, say in Colorado. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but I believe they're required for some of the municipal utility projects, level B or level A.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm trying to pull up the Colorado. My computer finally came back online.
Oh, great. Mark's been joining us from his cell phone today because, as technology will do sometimes, his computer was stuck in a restart right before the live stream.
I want to say it's Colorado SB 18 something. I can't quite remember. I'm trying to pull it up here, but yes.
Okay.
And a lot of it's dependent on the end user.
Right.
If they tell us, well, quality level B will suffice until we go forward with a design, or like certain lighting projects that we've helped on, we've gone through quality level B, and then the installer at the end has a hydrovac truck, or they're going to expose the utility before they do the installation. Other clients have said, hey, no, we want to go all the way to A, and we want you to find it, we want you to expose it, we want precision vertical, and by doing so we have to go to level A. So I don't want to say it's not required, because I can't find the actual bill here.
So it depends on the project, and then it depends on the end user. So in some cases, there may be a required quality level to be achieved, and then in other projects, it's simply just a preference.
Correct.
Got it. Okay.
And most of the time, and who's out there listening, I'm sorry if I speak wrong here, but most of the time, what we have seen in Colorado specifically is that they do ask for a price all the way to quality level A. And in a few of the instances that we've worked with individuals or municipalities or whatnot, we've submitted prices for up to quality level B and additional with the quality level A, and they've made the choice that, okay, well, let's go to B, and then when it comes time to installation, or to when we get ready to move forward with it, we will go ahead and expose to quality level A. So it's dependent on the end user most of the time.
So that's actually really pretty cool. It sounds, very dynamic in that, you can propose, a quote or proposal all the way through level D, C, B, A quality level of subsurface utility locating. However, a client may choose at certain stages in the project to go to certain quality levels, and then later on, when they're ready to, really get close to, to really starting the project, that's when they could say, okay, hey, Coffey, we want to call you back in. We could use, we're ready for quality level A now.
Right. And so one of the things that I was trying to find here, I finally got it to come up, is it's Colorado SB 18-167. And it's constantly evolving. But when is the SB 18-167 SUE required? And it's a project involving a construction contract with a public entity, A
Okay.
project involves primary horizontal construction and does not involve primarily the construction of buildings. It doesn't mean you couldn't use it for when you do construction of buildings. I know a lot of them do. The third point is the project has an anticipated excavation footprint that exceeds 2 feet in depth and 1,000 square feet, excluding fencing and signing projects, and anything that involves utility boring. So anytime they're going to bore a utility in, and the project will require the design services of a licensed PE. So they're bringing a lot of things together there, to make these happen. There's a lot of moving parts and and in the end, there's going to be a lot of people involved.
Yeah, that's certainly interesting, and it was also interesting to hear about the different projects that subsurface utility engineering could even be considered. I know in the case that you just read, they were saying that fencing wasn't necessary, but it just started to get the brain thinking about, wow, there's so many instances in everyday life that could benefit from subsurface utility engineering or locating. I mean, it's a lot of the stuff that we do, it's super important to know what's underneath us.
And exactly, you wouldn't, if you're going to install a fence, you wouldn't have to, take it to the level of a full-blown SUE investigation. But you would be, it's in your best interest to have, a utility locator, be it 811 or a private utility locator. 811, Colorado 811, Wyoming 811, they come out, they locate utilities to the meter. So if you're in a rural area and your meter is at the road, they're going to locate to the meter. They're not going to locate anything from the meter to your house. That's where someone like I come in, and you call us and we come in and we show you where your power line or your fiber line or wherever it leaves the meter. So if you do want to put a fence up on your property, you want to make sure you don't drill a hole through an electrical line. You don't have to take that to the full-blown SUE stage, but the subsurface locating, it's very important. It can be used in almost any project you see going up. Anything you drive by, if you're in the Front Range area or in the Salt Lake City area, or even a small town like Laramie or Cheyenne, any construction you see, there has been a locator out there.
And can you answer for us, what is the difference between, I know you said Colorado 811 or Wyoming 811. I know that you said they'll locate to the meter, but what are the other differences? If I'm correct, isn't it also true that, those other locators, when compared to Coffey and Cowboy Locating, that there are some utilities that they do not find? Is that right?
Well, it's
or you have to go through like various utilities themselves to figure out where all they're located. You have to contact each utility themselves to get information. But whereas if you were to come in, you could locate them all in one sweep. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, yes and no. So depending on the company. So for instance, like CenturyLink, 811 locates CenturyLink. They also locate a plethora of other utilities. But you might have one locator from 811 that only does CenturyLink, and then you have another one that'll come in and do, say, the power, be it Excel or Rocky Mountain Power here in Wyoming or Carbon Power and Light. So you're in Colorado in the Front Range area. They're much busier than we are here in southeastern Wyoming. So they have different locators that are set to locate for, this locator does CenturyLink, this one does Excel, this one does so and so and so and so. And some of those companies have their own locators on staff that come out and respond to those 811 calls as well. The municipalities, like they will have, someone from the water department that comes out and locates their water lines. It's not that they miss things. They're there for a specific purpose. They're there to locate a fiber line for CenturyLink. not that they don't care, but if there's another fiber line for somebody else, that's not CenturyLink.
They're not contracted to do anything.
They're not contracted to do it. They're contracted for a specific purpose. It is the CenturyLink fiber line. There could be an Excel gas line 2 feet away. They don't care. Not that, like I said, not that they don't care. It's just not that's not what they're there for. Whereas with if you do hire a private utility locator, we use 811 as well. We call 811 and work with those guys hand in hand. I meet with a 811 locator almost every project we have. I see them on site. We walk through, we discuss what they're seeing and what we're seeing. The difference it being, I'm looking for everything,
right?
Absolutely everything. Whereas they're kind of narrowed into a specific utility or a specific utility, a water line, a power line, a fiber line. Most of the municipalities will come out and do, storm, sanitary, water. But they're very narrowed in, where I'm broad. I'm searching for absolutely everything. We are finding, conduit that's in the ground that doesn't have anything in it. We might find a water line that, nobody knows about. We found a few gas lines that, they didn't know they had, companies didn't know they had. So we do a lot of the same. We're just, on my end, I'm just a broader approach.
Sure. And I can imagine, in any type of project management, be it administrative or, engineering, just how helpful it is to have, the management coming from one entity, like yourself, instead of having to rally all of these different individuals searching for different utilities and then getting that whole, succinct package of utility information and then interpreting it and combining it. I think it's certainly beneficial to have someone like yourself come in and just do everything all at once. And it's coming from one entity like yourself, and you're just able to see everything at the same time. I think that there's something beneficial to that for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, wonderful. So I think now we could talk about, do you all have any projects for us today, Dave or Mark? Any projects that we can review that we've currently been working on?
Sure can. I believe if Joe Henderson's still on, he might recognize this one.
Okay, I see your screen, Dave.
Can you see my screen? Okay.
There we go.
So this was a report that we did for, I think we did this with Joe, correct, Mark?
Yes, sir.
Joe's a traffic engineer and was working with the city of Broomfield and used our information, I think, to do some engineering design work. Our task was to do a SUE investigation for for a portion of 136th Street. Here's the cover sheet. What accompanies this is several notes and that include weasel words to keep us out of liability, along with a lot of details for who the utilities belong to, what quality level was used to map these utilities, that kind of thing. There's also, I think there's a report that goes with this.
That's part of it.
That's part of it. Let me pull that up real quick. This is the report that goes with the exhibit, the drawing, that talks about the project scope, the utility locations, the ownerships, description of the description of the utilities, information about where the utility information came from, the process, and the the data limitations. So that this all kind of a supplemental document to the exhibit. As you can see here, we talk about the quality level that was used to provide location information for these particular utilities. But the end result is a deliverable that the engineer or the municipality can use to understand where those utilities are within the specific corridor that Joe and the city of Broomfield are interested in doing some design work in.
Wow. Okay. So that is the map right there. That looks like it's, the gold mine of the project, where it just shows all of those colored lines are just various different utilities that you found. So it's a complete mapping of everything around that area. And now they know where all of that is and can work around or with that information.
Correct.
Correct. Mark, wasn't there something interesting about the water line that was here?
Not on this one.
Not on this one? Okay.
No. The interesting part of this one was none of us realized that there were that many utilities on the north corridor of that right of way.
Did you look at the south corridor as well, or just the north line? Did you look at the south line as well?
It was moved to the north.
Everything was moved to the north?
Correct.
Wow.
So there's a lot of detail that needs to go in there. What was the end result of this project? Was it what kind of a project is this for?
It's a traffic signal expansion. They were using fiber to interconnect traffic signals. They were adding signal in. And
yeah, so it's real important to understand where the existing utilities are, so that whoever's going to install the new fiber optic line understands where to put it, so that they're not digging up existing utilities.
And so, I mean, as you can see, if you're looking at this screen here, thank you for that, Joe. If you're looking at this screen here, you can see how busy some of this stuff gets. I don't think there's a vast majority of the population doesn't understand what is underneath them.
It's hard, at that zoomed out location, it's hard to understand really what's in the ground. So what's F here?
So you have on that specific page you're looking at right there, you have 5 different fiber lines. You have a gas line, you have a power line, you have an existing water line, and an irrigation line. All of that runs down that corridor, which is roughly, 75 feet wide, maybe, from back of curb to fence line, which is property line. And then behind that fence line, which wasn't our concern, but we had to hook onto some of them. But behind that fence line, there's another corridor of utilities there as well. It's a 5 foot long or 5 foot wide corridor that runs the length of the property there. That's jam packed full of fiber and power as well. So, as you can see here, some of this stuff, especially in these areas down in the Front Range that are growing just out of control. That's not a bad thing, but there's infrastructure on top of infrastructure on top of infrastructure on top of infrastructure, and so and for instance, for this project, it was just popping a bore in the ground and going wasn't going to suffice. So.
Yeah, and I actually have a question. If you can leave that visual up, my goodness, with all those utilities mapped, Mark, how much of this was, can you talk a little bit about the quality levels, if you can remember just from looking at this visual? Really, my question is, how much of this was able to be seen with the eye? Kind of that quality level. See, if you will, versus, how deep did you have to go through the quality levels to get this information?
So this entire project was, with the exception of the sewer, the sewer was quality level C, because we would use inlets and manholes, take inverts at those manholes. We never physically pushed a line through the pipelines or anything. We used, manhole to manhole. So it's considered quality level C because we never physically located the pipe in between manholes. The rest of these utilities, visual on the landscape, there's boxes for the telecommunications. There's electrical junction boxes that are visible on the surface. There's blow-off valves for the irrigation lines that are visible on the surface. There's water valves for the main lines that you can see in the street or on the curb. Those the cast iron valves that are, I think they're like an 8-inch diameter valve cover. A lot of that is visible. In between the fiber pole boxes, there's no evidence. There's landscaping, there's trees, there's sidewalk. Same thing with the power, with the exception of light poles or the junction boxes or pole boxes, or the traffic signals that were on the west end of this project. Actual physical evidence on the ground, intermittent, maybe every 500-600 feet. That's where, us being able to either hook on to a utility at one of those junction boxes or, detect the electrical. All of the utilities oscillate at 60 hertz, and that can be a discussion for another day. But the equipment that we do use is able to detect those frequencies. So either that, or we can hook on to, say, a ground wire and push a signal through it, where we have a box that is pushing a signal through that ground wire, and we're using the other end, the wand, as we call it, to detect that signal as we go in between junction boxes. And so, as for physical evidence, yes, there is, but as being able to show what is going on underneath the ground just by standing there and looking, not much. It was a spider web, and a lot of them they walked over each other, and without being able to do what we can do with the technology we have, there's no way you could have known what was there.
Wonderful. Yeah. And it sounds like we have, so Joe Henderson was, so was he the client on this project, would you say?
He was the design engineer, the traffic. So there's a traffic study or a traffic signal construction. And, Joe was the traffic signal engineer on this. And all of the data that we provided to the city, Joe took, and so he could do his design so they could implement traffic signals at the far east end of this project, because they were interconnecting. The west end of the project already had existing traffic signals and fiber, and they wanted to run it down, I believe it was a little over half a mile, to the other intersection, put traffic signal lights in, not new signals. There are no signals on the east end. And they wanted to interconnect them so they could control them from one central hub. And the data that we gathered was turned over to Joe, so Joe could do the actual engineering design on the project.
Wow, wonderful. Well,
comment here, if you go to the east end of the project, Dave, you can see just how convoluted the fiber lines are.
I think I'm at the east end of the project limit right now. I'm on the last page, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fiber lines, 6, 7, 8 other different, 9 other different other utilities. The intersection's a disaster. The challenge that Joe had to put a traffic signal in here, I think was probably pretty significant. And without this information, he couldn't do it. He couldn't easily do it without potentially incurring a tremendous cost during construction.
Yeah, and we do have a comment from Joe. Thanks so much for tuning in and just being a part of this. It's wonderful to have you. I don't think we were expecting you. And
let's give a shout out while we've got the opportunity to Sustainable Traffic Solutions, Joe Henderson, our good friend and client.
Yeah, it's really wonderful to have him with us, and actually, to have someone who is part of a project another part of a project that we were working on that we're actually pulling up here. So thanks so much for your information, Joe. And you can see he says, if you go east, you'll see lots of fiber lines on the north side of the street. I'm not sure if a normal locate would have identified all of the fiber lines. And he also said that, the information we provided has certainly made the project go smooth. So thank you so much, Joe. We are very grateful for your partnership in projects. So anything else, Dave and Mark, on this project, or is that, it just sounds like it was a successful outcome all around, and that it was very helpful for Joe to continue to do what sounded like a pretty complex job ahead of him?
Yeah, it sounds like it was a good project, and we ended up, giving the city of Broomfield and their engineering team, Joe, some information to help, help limit their construction costs. When there's unknowns in construction, those things oftentimes create additional costs, and hopefully we're by the sounds of it, we're probably going to end up helping through this work, help save the city some money, and that's really what it's all about. Saving money on the back end, because if you have unknowns during construction, that's when costs escalate.
Yeah, I grew up in a way where I really am a firm believer in doing things right the first way, because if you don't, or the first time, because if you don't, you end up just spending more money patching over, fixing, redoing. So it ends up being more cost effective most of the time, in my experience, to just do things right the first time.
Sure does.
Well, anything else that you all want to add, Dave or Mark, or do you feel like we've covered subsurface utility engineering and locating pretty well today?
I'm not sure what else there is to say about this. Maybe just shout out to a little bit. This is the work that we do with the SUE Engineering is a collaboration between Coffey Engineering and Cowboy Locating. Cowboy Locating is a sister company to Coffey Engineering, but wholly owned outside the company. So we're not affiliated directly with Cowboy Locating, but that Cowboy Locating provides all the field utility locates. Coffey Engineering provides the professional surveying and engineering services that go along with the actual SUE reporting. So it's a good partnership, and we're happy to have Coffey Engineering's happy to have Cowboy Locating and Sustainable Traffic Solutions, Joe Henderson, as good clients and partners.
That's wonderful. And so who would someone call if they are looking for some help in this area? Would it be to Coffey or to Cowboy Locating, or would Coffey be a great first start?
Mark, I think you could certainly call Marc Hungerford with Cowboy, or Ty Harriet with Cowboy Locating, or you could call Coffey Engineering's office and ask for Mark or Stuart or myself if you're interested in our services.
We use each other, all the time. So if I get a phone call about a SUE investigation, we immediately reach out to Coffey with Cowboy. Now, I am a part owner of Cowboy, and I work for Dave at Coffey Engineering, and I have for like 15 years. But when somebody reaches out to me at Cowboy Locating and says, "Hey, we're going to do a SUE. We need to do a SUE investigation. We need to get the ball rolling on this. I need a cost for, start to finish." I'm not a professional engineer. I don't employ a professional engineer at Cowboy. Dave does, however, employ quite a few professional engineers. And so I turn around and I reach out to Coffey, and we move forward with that. If Coffey gets a phone call that says, "Hey, we need a SUE investigation, or we need utility locating done," they in turn around and say, "Well, you need to talk to Ty Harriet or Marc Hungerford at Cowboy, and they can, we can get the ball rolling on this end." So we work hand in hand with each other. So either one, anybody you get a hold of, if it has to do with utilities or with SUE investigations, or subsurface utility engineering, either one of us, because we're going to reach out to each other.
Sure. So it sounds like there's definitely a marriage between the two businesses, and that in terms of the people that make up the businesses, you all are right next to each other, talking to each other every day. In fact, you're in the same building right now, aren't you? Just down the hall from each other?
Across the hall.
If I opened
Across the hall.
I could hit him with a pin.
Wonderful. So anyone could just call Coffey Engineering or Cowboy Locating to start. And even if they don't know what specifically they need, whether they need SUL or SUE, they could just call you, either one, Coffey or Cowboy, and Coffey or Cowboy would receive them and facilitate all the processes to make it happen.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Wonderful. Well, we have answered most of the questions during this live stream, actually in the middle of our conversation. So we actually do not have any other questions left. So I think that's it for today, unless you guys have anything else you want to add.
No, thanks, Marissa. This is great as usual.
Wonderful. Thank you guys so much. Informative as always. I love learning about this stuff, and you two really, Dave, you're the one I talk with the most, but Mark as well. You guys really break it down in a way that's understandable, and I think that's so important for a client who may not necessarily have a background in this industry, but just needs to figure out what this actually means. Why do I need this? How does this make sense? So it's really wonderful to have someone on the other side that can explain it, one human to another. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, guys. Have a great day.
Thanks, Marissa. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.